In today's video, I'm going to show you how to use one of these fluid extractors to do an oil change on your car and save you a bit of pain and time. This is my 2017 Audi S3 for which we'll be doing the oil change on today. And actually, Audi recommends using one of these oil pumps or fluid pumps to do oil changes on these cars. So I actually bought this one from EWK just straight off of Amazon. It was about $70, one of the cheaper ones they had. There's two ways you can use this. First off, manually, just by simply pumping this. And second off, if you have an air compressor, you can hook it up right here and suck out the oil a bit easier and faster. One thing I am a bit skeptical on with this pumper is that it won't be able to get every last drop out of the oil, as well as any debris that might be sitting in the oil pan, like that would come out when you just pull the drain plug and let the fluid drain that way. But it does mean I don't have to jack up the car and get under it. I'm not going to begin sparking the great oil debate, which I'm sure is a big deal in the Audi community as it is in a lot of the other communities. I've seen a lot of people like to run liquid moly on these cars with a man oil filter. Had I not been due for service and needing to get this done in a short time frame, I would have ordered that online. FCP Euro actually sells a complete kit with all that stuff. However, I have seen a lot of people run Castrol Edge. I'm doing 5W40. Some people run 5W30. Got this at Walmart. It was surprisingly cheap for being full synthetic. And then the SDP oil filter was the best brand they really had available. The only tool we're going to need is a 32mm socket, and that's to remove the oil filter housing. First couple steps here. One, pull off our plastic engine cover. This is just held on with a few rubber grommets, and I did not realize how dusty it was under here. That's a bit sad. And secondly, we need to pull out our oil dipstick. This is what the current oil looks like after almost 8,000 miles. And Audi does not recommend changing the oil on this car for 10,000 miles. I couldn't let myself do that much, so even going 8,000 was a lot for me. But for 8,000 miles, that still looks pretty clean. It looks cleaner than the oil would in one of these cars if I pulled it out after 3,000 miles. I'll tell you that much. If you do get this exact same oil extractor, it'll come with a few extra parts. One being this hose, which connects to the tank and then ends right here. And then I have added one extension to it here. So this we're just going to stick down into here the whole way. It seems like it has bottomed out on the oil pan. I can't push it in anymore, so we should be good. Double check to make sure all these connections are tight, because if you don't, it's going to be really sad. I've been having a bit of an issue with this blue piece right here. I took it off. I was pumping for quite a while and couldn't get any oil to come out. You can see now it's finally coming. There's a little rubber ball inside this blue piece that I think came out and was letting air out inadvertently. So make sure if yours isn't working, that might be your issue. I can feel the oil is warm while pumping, which is good. I let the car idle for about 5 minutes. Ideally, you'd want to do this when the car is mostly warm. The box does say it's rated for 175 degrees, so I wanted to make sure it didn't exceed that. After 15 minutes or so of pumping, we've gotten just under 5 liters out of the car. Like I said, this takes about 5.8 quarts, assuming it's perfectly full, which would equate to about 5.5 liters. I'm going to assume that a little bit of it has burned off since the last oil change, given that it is a turbo car. And also, obviously, I'm sure we didn't get every last drop out of there. But what we're going to do next is pop off our oil filter housing. This is a 32mm. Man, that was a lot tighter than I expected it to be. There's definitely a lot more oil draining out here, so we might be able to suck a little bit more out. Let's see, look at that, we're already getting a bit more oil out from doing that. One thing I completely spaced on, I just realized now, if you're doing this, make sure you remove your oil cap to start so it takes pressure out of the system. That explains why we were a bit short on oil. I can't believe I did not do that earlier. I promise you this is not my first time doing an oil change. But we're getting a good amount more oil now. It's a little bit hard to see, but I think it's right about here on this lip, which is just under 5.5 liters. So I think we ended up getting about all of it out. Put our new oil filter in. For anyone who might say Castrol is not the correct oil for this car, look at that right there. So this is torqued down to 25 Newton meters, or about 2 ugga-duggas. Since I got just under 5.5 liters out, I'm gonna start by putting about 5.5 liters in, and we'll check the oil level from there. Insert our dipstick and check our oil level. It's hard to read on the dipstick, but you can see right where the hatching stops. It's just above halfway. So what I'm gonna do is let the car run for a few minutes, get up to temperature, check the oil level when it's up to temperature, and add more as needed. I'll show you real quick how to reset the service interval, because as you can see, I currently have my oil change due. So if I go to the MMI, hit vehicle, and then if you hit the little button over here, you have your few options. If you go down to service and checks, we can do our service intervals. We can simply reset our oil change interval. And yes, I know I'm a bit overdue, but this car doesn't get driven that much. So yeah, let's reset this. And there we go. So it says next oil change in 10,000 miles and 365 days. As far as I can tell, you can't change that. But the nice thing is, if you want to do it more often, you can always come in here and see when the last time it was done. And I always like to keep a service sheet anyways to write down all the maintenance I do. But there you have it. That is how you do an oil change on an S3 or really any MQB car, as well as how to use one of these thingies. So in retrospect, it definitely has its pros and cons. If you have an air compressor you can hook up and just suck it straight out instead of pumping, 100% totally recommend it, easily worth the money. If you're gonna be pumping like I was, it's definitely a bit of work, but in the end, I still think it's better than having to get under the car and deal with all that and get more dirty. I mean, because here, I just got to stand here the whole time and pump. Didn't have to do anything under the car, which was great. But thank you all so much for watching. If you enjoyed this video, give it a thumbs up. Let me know if you want to see more S3 videos. I'll see you all next time.